In this week's episode of Studio Inter, we'll be reviewing the draw against Udinese. We'll be previewing the Coppa Italia derby against Milan, as well as the game against Benevento. This week's Moggi, Moratti and Frog, and much, much more. Everything here on Studio Inter, on SempreInter.com. Benvenuti, bentornati to another edition of Studio Inter. I'm your host Nima Ruzzari, welcoming you to a new week with us. That has started off pretty disappointing, or I feel really disappointed. I don't know about how everyone else feels, but I'm guessing they are. But there's always a silver lining, and that's why we love our first panelist, Mr. Positivity himself. He writes excellent previews for SempreInter.com, if I may say so myself. Mr. Mohamed Nassar.
Hey. Thank you very much for having me on again, and I look forward to spreading the sunshine.
I think this could also be related to the fact that you have actual sunshine living in Egypt, whilst I'm stuck up in Sweden in a frozen appendix.
Look. It's no Dubai, so I mean we have been downgraded by about 10 or 15 centigrade in the year that's happened, but it's still no Sweden for sure. I mean, look, it gets down to 7 or 8 at night. It's still pretty cold, I think. No, 7, 8
at night.
Quite cold.
Yeah, but during the day.
Yeah, it's nice and beautiful. It's nice and beautiful.
Yeah. And Egypt is a beautiful country, absolutely. And we're also joined by SempreInter.com chief news editor, Mr. William Beckman.
Hello. Spreading the sunshine is not my job, so I'll let Mo do that. But I'll try and help him spread sunshine. Yeah.
Yes, sunshine. I think
that thing.
that thing. You can't. We can't even say. We forgot.
I'm lost for words. I'm that frustrated.
Well, you've got snow. There.
Yeah, although I missed it today. So I woke up and it was slush. So. But
yeah,
yes,
that's because you live in London, isn't it?
Yeah.
The
snow was followed by rain, which kind of
that's exactly what I was going to say. This is true of me as well, because I live in Gothenburg, and because of the weather, we're known as Little London. It's always grainy and drizzle here. So when it snows, it stays for about 15 minutes, then it turns into slush, and then it freezes. So you can basically put your skates on when you go outside. And then we also have the fact that the sun goes down at about 2-3 p.m. as well. So yeah, fun times. Yeah. And we're also joined by the Athletics' own Mr. Reverend Mike Piellucci.
I don't think I have the vibes to spread sunshine, but I am wearing my Antonio Cassano kit right now to try and will us to some creativity in the final third. So maybe I could get some good creativity going for Tuesday. How about that?
I like the sound of that. Let's start with the Udinese game, because last week we were all on cloud nine after a fantastic performance against Inter, and I remember we were talking on here, and I raised the question that was it that Inter were that good, or was it that Pirlo got it that wrong, or was it a combination of both? And I think after the Udinese game, I think we got a good answer, not a definitive answer, but based on the last 18 months, I think this was once again a reminder that Antonio Conte's Inter is very static and can only play in one way. And as Will so brilliantly said it about a year and a half ago now, his teams are a marching band. They can only do work in one way. They can only play one symphony or one beat in one way. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. To me, the main feeling is that if you can beat Juventus, you should be able to beat Udinese. Before we get to before I expand more on that, I want to hear your thoughts on this, and I want to start with you, Mo. I looking at that game, just in and of itself, do you see the microcosms I draw of how that was a microcosm of the problem under Antonio Conte? Or what are your thoughts?
Oh, Yes and no. Okay, so on the one hand, of course, we've seen this before, not just under Conte, but under many teams. After a big win, there might come a hangover. I definitely did not think that this was going to happen, because I thought, given the week-long preparation, it would have been pretty much a walk in the park for Inter, but it wasn't the case. But I also respectfully disagree, because I think, if anything, that was idiosyncratic about Conte's first season at Inter is that Antonio Conte's Inter, as opposed to Spalletti's Inter, was the Inter that did very well almost all the time against the weaker opposition, provincials, etc., but didn't do so well against the stronger opposition. So it was it was difficult for us to predict the Udinese game as a trap game, but for sure the failings in the ability to win the match were, like you say, symptomatic of something that we've seen regularly, which is, like Mike was saying as well earlier. And I'd love to know where the reverend comes from, Mike, later, but it comes from the fact that if the flanks aren't working, if Brozovic is not having a killer offensive day, if whatever is happening between Lautaro and Lukaku is continuing, then there's no one else in that trequartista position to be able to create something, magical in that final third. And Alexis tried to do that. He tries to do that, but I think Alexis is not the player for this. I mean, he's always a bit rushed. He's not composed. He doesn't pass the ball as well. But at least he finds himself in that position frequently. But also, I think, everyone says, shot on Conte's substitutions, but he did the right subs. It's not his fault that Sensi didn't show up. He normally does the sub, and Sensi delivers the goods. So, I agree completely. It was a very disappointing performance, a lackluster performance, and the annoying thing about the performance was the performance itself, not the result. Like a 0-0, you can take a 0-0 if you've like has happened many times. You can stomach it. If Lautaro misses a couple of open goals, we hit the post, we hit the crossbar, penalty denied. But they really showed nothing over the 90 minutes to deserve going ahead. I think this is the most frustrating thing about the performance itself.
Yeah, Mike, I suspect you disagree. I want to hear what you think.
Well, I think. Look, I want to take this back to address the big picture question of what we think this Inter is and how good they are. I want to take this back to actually to the Roma match, because for me, the Roma match is way more infuriating than yesterday. Roma, they had it won. The only reason they didn't win is because Antonio Conte's tactics basically made them play defensively, and that was how they let in a goal. This team can't really do that. But let's say they don't do that, right? Because the players on the pitch performed like a team that should have beaten Roma. If they beat Roma and then they beat Juventus back-to-back weeks, we are sitting here saying, without a shadow of a doubt, we believe in this Inter, right? So to me, just because yesterday they don't, they get a draw just like they did in the Roma match, but that doesn't invalidate, I guess, the optimism I have in that. Do I think this team is flawed? Yes. Do I think they are a Scudetto favorite above all other teams? No. But do I think they're good enough to win in a league where everybody's flawed? Yeah, I do. And yesterday didn't really dissuade me of that. I mean, look, Udinese got a draw against Atalanta, the previous weekend. So it's not like this is just an Inter-centric result. This could be something that we give a little bit of credit to for Udinese's current form. I don't feel a lot better about not getting 3 points, but at least Udinese wasn't on some massive losing streak. Like, there was precedent for this result against another top side coming recently. The problem is, and the problem is Antonio Conte. Yeah, I realize I'm being all over the place because I'm trying very hard to be optimistic here, guys. I'm trying to be like Mo. I'm trying to feel good. And I do think this isn't awful, right? I mean, they got a point. They're a point closer to the top of the table than they were before. Clearly, this hasn't been a great week for other teams. Milan loses a match. Napoli gets blown out this morning. Inter are very much still on pace to potentially win the Scudetto. The frustrating part is, yes, they should have changed the tactics for this match. Mo brought up Alexi, and I think, if anything, Mo's right. The subs were fine. The subs were not the problem. I do think, though, if you're looking at the squad and how they're playing Udinese, this to me was a match for the 3-4-2-1, right? Arturo Vidal is not going to give you anything in the midfield in this match. Take him out. Put Alexi in. If you don't think that Alexi can play 90 minutes, fine, but at least give him most of the second half and put him.
No, I couldn't agree more.
Instead of Lautaro, because even when Lautaro hasn't been converted recently, his movement has been good. He's been involved in the match. So try that. Play a more proactive approach. I could give you the spiel about why Christian Eriksen would be great here, but we know that's not happening. But ultimately, if you line up the way that he lined up yesterday, it's not an ideal situation, and you're relying on your players to execute perfectly to win. And yes, this is a better team than Udinese, but that's not doing your roster a very good service. And that puts you in positions like yesterday where the only creativity was coming on the right. And I love Achraf Hakimi, and this isn't a dig on Hakimi because every player has bad matches, but that was an awful match by Hakimi. He's 22. It's going to happen sometimes, but he's too tentative. There were some opportunities for him to shoot that he normally has shot and frankly has scored on some weird angles this year, and he didn't. The distribution just wasn't there. That ball to Lukaku in another week, I think he places it where it needs to be placed. But it shouldn't be on Achraf Hakimi to say, hey, this isn't the right match for you, but you better go out there and create everything because we can't figure out another way to score against the bottom half team. That's on Antonio Conte. But in the bigger picture, do I think this is an indictment of Inter overall? No, I still think this team could win just because it's good enough and nobody else seems to be perfect right now.
Look, the way I see it is this, and it's twofold. The first thing is this is a missed opportunity. And in a league that's this tight, when you have Milan and Juve, when you get a chance to go past them, you have to take it. And Inter failed. This is, again, they did it under Conte last season as well. The games against Sassuolo and Bologna, etc., these are the games that cost, Parma last season, these are the games that cost Inter the Scudetto last season. Because last season, as Fulvio said, was a missed, and I agree with that 100%, it was a missed opportunity to win the Scudetto. We're repeating the same mistake this year, but in different ways. And this frustrates me because I'm not one of those. I don't agree with you guys when you think that this, Inter has the best roster. I think Inter. I'm with Lozio Bergomi. I think there are at least two teams that have better. But he says three. I think three is too much. But I think there are at least two.
Too. You don't talk about that.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
It's flawed, but I think it's good enough.
No, but that's the thing. I don't think it's good enough to win it. I think it's good enough to finish in the top four. But to win it, you need something else. You can't afford to make these mistakes. And I watched Udinese against Atalanta midweek, the postponed game. That was a dress rehearsal of how Udinese were going to play against Inter. Now, if I sit on my fat ass here in Gothenburg and I can realize that, Antonio Conte should realize that too. And to play the same midfield against Juventus and use the same game plan as against Juventus against Udinese is stupid, for lack of a better word. And it frustrates.
That's how they lost the Europa League final. That's exactly how they lost the Europa League final. He played the same way against Sevilla that he played against Shakhtar, and it was very obvious if you watch Sevilla that Sevilla would not make the number of mistakes that you need to lose that sort of match. So yeah, he's done this before. My whole thing though, and the reason why I think this may be different than another year, you're right, this is a wasted opportunity. But what team is the reason that Juventus won so many times? It wasn't like all 9 of those teams were so unstoppable, but they consistently proved that they had the mentality and the quality and the tactical know-how to take it.
Yeah, no, I see what you mean.
It's not going to be there for them this year. I don't see them doing that. So who will? It really, unless you think that Milan is that team the rest of the way, I can't see anybody else who can.
I think Milan and Juve are that team. I think this is, as I said last week, 4-horse race. I'm kind of in the in between changing Napoli with Atalanta for the same as the fourth horse in that race. But other than that, I think it is between Inter, Juve, and Milan. And I think Milan and Juve, especially Milan, have shown over these 13 months that it's no fluke. They are this good. I mean, the games they've lost have been against Atalanta, who are in brilliant form, and against Juve, who anyone can lose to. They don't do these. They don't step in dog shit the way that Inter seem to do against Sassuolo at home when Roberto Gagliardini misses from open goal, or against Bologna, or against Parma. Juve don't do that. Milan don't do that, and they haven't been doing that for 13 months. And that's why, I'm just going based on what I've seen for a year now. And that's what frustrates me, because I think that it doesn't make the win against Juve meaningless. But it kind of does in this. The drop points against Sampdoria and Udinese means if you count in the 3 points against Juventus, you're still down a point where you should be, because it's 3 points lost and then it's 2 point lost against. It's minus 2 points really, not 1 point. And that's what annoys me. The Inter should be leading the Serie A by 2 points now if they wanted to win the Serie A. That's the way I look at it. And to think that they lose it by Alexis Sanchez taking penalties against Sampdoria and Antonio Conte using the game plan against Juventus against Udinese, that's just so frustrating for me to accept, because Inter are good enough to beat Sampdoria and Udinese. They really are. And Conte is good enough to, should be good enough, and is good enough, in my opinion, to tactically outmaneuver Gotti and Ranieri. That's what frustrates me. And again, I was tweeting this out in a thread yesterday, that this is what frustrates me about Conte. He makes the incredibly difficult things so easy, but he has an incredible ability to make the most simple things damn near impossible. And it's mind-boggling. If it's stubbornness or what it is, I don't know, but it's costing Inter titles and points that all add up at the end of the season. And that's what frustrates me. It's mostly frustration, because I can see these things adding up. Will, you've been quiet awfully long.
I was enjoying listening to all your points. I was agreeing with most of them. I think this is the kind of match that, if you win it 1-0, you say it's the win of champions, and it's the win that you look back on in 4 months' time as points that you maybe didn't deserve but found a way to pick up. And I think, therefore, if you look at the other side of the coin, if you don't win it, then this is potentially the kind of game where you lose the title. So yeah, it's definitely 2 points drop. There's nobody that could say otherwise. I think that I do agree with you in that we saw problems we've seen before. I know that we have a good record against the good team, the smaller teams, as Mo said, but especially if you look at them this season, we've been doing that by playing them as if they are big teams. We've been inviting teams onto us and then hitting them on the break. I'm thinking of the goal that we scored against Spezia at home on the counter attack. That's the kind of thing that we've been getting success from with this team. Yeah, on Saturday, Udinese just refused to do that. Conte said they came to not lose, and it worked, because that's kind of what you have to do against this team, because we are a team that, generally speaking, isn't about finesse and craft. We're a team that's about sort of stamina and running into space and dynamism. And we didn't get much of an opportunity to show that off yesterday. So we had a lot of, final balls that were going slightly astray. You had obviously the token Lautaro miss, which now we can put in the bank every week as a guarantee. And although obviously that was a great save from Musso, the one I'm talking about. It's very frustrating. Yeah. And having said that, I also agree with Mike that I'm not massively more pessimistic than I was before this match began. It's a blow. But if you look at the table, we're exactly halfway through the season and we're 2 points off the top, and it's not a team that's called Juventus. So, I'm not going to be sort of overreacting about that. I agree actually with, I think it was Mike that said that the Roma game was more frustrated. I agree, because when you have a win and you give it away, that's more frustrating than when you just don't break through. Because I think, we could have seen this game quite a few times already this season. The Spezia game was, if you don't get the first goal, then this is kind of how the game drifts. It's kind of like the Shakhtar game. I know it was, they kind of set up the same way as Udinese. The game in, both games against Shakhtar.
Yeah.
When we score, let's say Lautaro scored that chance after 20 minutes, we might end up winning 3-0.
For sure.
Because Udinese, then everything changes. But if you don't get the first goal, then you're made to pay for these structural deficiencies, and they become more of a problem. And because, I think the fact that we didn't create much yesterday is pretty indicative of the fact that there's a structural problem. I mean, even the Lautaro chance, that was a gift, from the Udinese. Yeah. We didn't create that.
But that's exactly what I mean about Conte getting the really difficult things, make them so easy. Like against Hellas Verona, the 3-4-2-1. I was surprised he played that, but it worked. He's the reason we won that game, because he tactically he outmaneuvered Ivan Juric, who's clearly one of the best tacticians in this league. he comes up with these brilliant things that he does, for example, at Juventus when he gets Bonucci and now Bastoni and Kolarov at Inter to play like these NFL quarterbacks with pinpointing long ball passes, cross ball passes. That's him. That's all him. If you can do something that difficult and get it to work, then why the hell can't you have the foresight to do that against a Sampdoria and Udinese who are going to play the way they do? That's
and to that point, I mean, and especially if we want to talk about in ways in which the roster is flawed, it's almost as though the way this team is built, like setting aside Conte's role in that or Conte's tactics, the way this team is built, you almost need Conte to do the creating more against these lower table teams because this team isn't built to break people down one-on-one or individually. If you look at guys who could really take somebody on one-on-one, I mean, you're talking about the strikers, you're talking about Achraf Hakimi. There's nobody in the midfield who can do that. You have another guy in Eriksen who could maybe unlock people with his passing, but that's obviously not an option per Conte's own choosing. So you have to really work tactically because nobody's going to do you that favor. You can't just plug in a Kahalanglu, whose name I'm butchering, Hakan over at Milan, right? That guy will unlock the match for you.
Çalhanoğlu.
Awful. I know.
I love it.
I swear I'm not that bad of a dumb American normally, guys.
No.
But that's the sort of player who Milan has. It could do that for you. This team doesn't have that. So you need Conte to create a bit as opposed to in these bigger matches. Yes, Conte out-schemes some people. But the fact is, because it's going to be open either way, that's when this roster, the way it's built, is going to thrive naturally anyways. It's going to be combative. It's going to work in the counter. A match like this, when Udinese says, yeah, you can take 90 minutes and see what you're going to do, he's got to find another solution because until they actually buy Rodrigo de Paul, like we've been rumored for 3 damn years, there is no midfielder in this team that you're going to give the ball to and say, okay, you're going to be able to create with your feet and also pass a little bit and also press. That guy isn't here. I think Stefano Sensi ideally sometimes, maybe. But yeah, I mean, Hakimi is on the right, but you need somebody in the midfield. I think I said this before. I think you could draw a direct line between the matches that this team can't win and the lack of chances up the middle. When they're not creating up the middle, it's over for them. You can't lean on Hakimi to do everything for you on the flank. And, they're not going to play English long ball style. So, yeah, something has to happen up the middle of the pitch. And on their best days, Brozovic has given them that. But in a team like this, it's harder for him to do what he does. So, yeah, nobody's going to dribble other than Hakimi on the wing or unless you get Lukaku on a counter. But you can't counter when nobody's going to give you – when they're not going to attack.
One thing that really, really wound me up was Udinese in the 89th minute, 90 whateverth minute. I think it was Pereira. I can't remember who else protecting the ball and the corner as if they're protecting a 1-0 lead in a Champions League final. It's a freaking 0-0 at home for them, So of course. As the dominant team in the league, as the at least in my opinion, the prime candidate for winning the Scudetto, you should be able to unlock any challenge in any shape or form as it may come.
Yes.
But honestly, come the fuck on, 0-0 at home. They passed the ball back all the way to the goalkeeper, to Musso.
But you knew this.
Time,
yeah.
It's like anti-football doesn't even begin to play to describe the shit show that Udinese put up yesterday. It was awful. It was unwatchable. And of course, we have to be better, and you have to unlock these teams, and you have to be. But come on, unbelievable. And for what? A single point? How's that going to help you in the relegation battle?
Well, it does.
It's 2 points in 4 days against Atalanta and Inter, isn't it? You've got to say they've done their job in these 2 games.
Yeah.
So, exactly. Yeah. Anyway, that's my rant.
So I agree with you. No, but I mean, it's like, and this is what frustrates me, because again, it leaves me feeling. It's one thing if the fact that that Juve have won so many years and they've been the best and no one's come near them. That's one thing. But when it feels like you were close but you failed because of silliness and things that were so easily avoidable, that frustrates me. And that's why I feel we're headed towards. And this is not a good feeling. I mean, if I'm looking at the games ahead now, and Milan are in a bad place in terms of form. That's quite clear. But if you look at the games they've got coming, the table is turning now. They've got Bologna away, then they've got Crotone at home, they got Spezia away, and then they got the derby. That's 9 points. That's 9 cruising. Ibrahimovic ugly scoring 2 goals in each of those without breaking up a sweat. 9 points. 9 points. Whilst Inter go into Benevento at home, then it's Fiorentina away, and then it's Lazio at home. I mean, this is what I mean with missed opportunities. You need to take these 5 points against Sampdoria and Udinese to put the pressure on, because you can't go into Lazio, you can't go into Atalanta, Fiorentina, having to win to keep up the pace. That way,
you might be able to with Fiorentina.
Yeah, if they are horrible this season.
They're a disaster.
They are a disaster,
but the point stands. The point stands.
Yeah, you get what I mean, and that's so frustrating.
We never win at the Frankie, even if it's Fiorentina's C team they fielded, they'd still score a goal in the last minute and get a draw. It seems to happen every year, though. It's never an easy game.
Abisso.
Yeah, but it should be
Maresca after that.
Yeah, they don't have Boubacar. What's his name? Is it Babacar? Yeah, the guy who, if he played Inter every week, would win the Ballon d'Or. It's he always manages to come up against Inter and do amazing things. But no, they don't have Babacar anymore. Or there's always one. Sassuolo have Consigli in goal. Fiorentina had Babacar. So no, it's it is what it is. But we have to talk about this Maresca situation as well, because I don't see Conte losing his mind over a minute or 2 minutes not being added to extra time is exaggerated, in my opinion. I think we have to unpack this a little bit. Yes, he was poor. He should have given Sensi a red card, and he should have sent off 2 Udinese players. No doubt about that. He missed his job. But for Antonio Conte to completely lose his mind the way he does and get sent off, so that now he'll miss at least one game, if not 2, maybe against Milan and against Benevento, and even more than that. That to me just screams of a person who's unhinged. This isn't Conte's losing, whinging. This is he lost his mind, yelling like a rabid dog. It's always you. It's always you.
You don't want to hear my Moratti of the week, huh?
Okay.
Find a new one, quick.
No. I didn't know you were going to pick that, but I think it's exaggerated. But on the other hand, and this is what Maresca said after the game, is absolutely unprofessional. It's I first afterwards I wasn't that bothered, and I'm not really that bothered by it. But if you're a referee, you shouldn't make provocative statements like, when you don't win, you have to accept it. That's rubbing angry people's faces in it, and that just makes it worse. In fact, I think the rules are quite clear. The referees aren't allowed to say anything like that, and that to me is a bit. I did not like that at all. I mean, I saw even Juventini colleagues who are Juve fans who were pissed off by that, by his comment there. And that I think, yeah.
Playing Conte's favor when the assessment for the suspension is made by the Lega.
Probably, hopefully, you're right, because that is a very bad comment. That just pissed everyone off. I mean, that's like trying to put out a fire with a tank of gasoline. It's just, there's no need for it. So yeah, okay. So that was that. We're midway through it. Inter have 41 points, which is more than they had at this stage last season. They're en route to get 82 points, which is what we ended last season with, exactly half of that. And we have 2 clean sheets in a row against the 2 Bianconeri sides, which is also something that we didn't expect or see coming. And to be honest, there was one when the Paul's shot went just wide with Handanovic doing his vintage frozen statue impression. I thought that was going to go in, and I closed my eyes and was just waiting for the commentator to scream goal, because I couldn't look at it. But it is what it is. We have the goalkeeper we do. Now, I mean, moving on now, we play Milan, and Conte, to me, I mean, his comments were pretty clear. finishing in the top four and winning in the Serie A is winning the Scudetto is much more important than the Coppa Italia, but it's a competition we respect. That to me says he's going to make like 9 changes to the team. And to me, which with a game going up against Milan, to me that's a mistake, because I think Benevento is a team Inter should easily beat no matter who they field, whereas Milan is a game you should be focusing on, because it gives you a psychological advantage, and it brings you to a semi-final of a cup that, as you guys were, when you and Mo and Will, convinced me a few weeks ago, is we need silverware. So I don't know. I think that I'm not as confident going into this derby as I was before his post-match remarks. What are your thoughts, Mo?
So first of all, let me just stand corrected or correct you. I did not convince you that we won that silverware. I was with you on the team.
No, it was you're right. It was Will. It
no,
was
I'll take the Coppa.
No, it was Will, and it was someone else. Who was it?
Yeah.
Was it?
I was jumping on there. I think Will and I were the ones who were.
It was
Mike.
Sorry. Yeah, it was you two. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
I still think I'm torn here. I think you're right in that Benevento are normally should be the game that you take for granted as a win, and focus on a derby, because the derby is a derby, and regardless of the competition, you need to give it its due respect. So there's that argument on the one hand. There's also the fact that if Milan are on the ropes, you want to make sure that they're as hurt as possible and inflict as maximum damage. So their form has been a bit neither here nor there recently compared to earlier in the season. So if you can really hand them a good whooping, God knows what this can do to their confidence or to their standing. Again, we know that Pioli is, he's a manager. He's a great manager. I still love him for his tenure at Inter, but he's not without his limitations. So in the big scheme, or the grand scheme of the season. But I also, on the other hand, do you really risk it? Risk putting, injuries, losing key players, etc. In ultimately what is the goal of the season, which is to win the Scudetto. But I think, given the importance of the match, this being a derby and all, I think you field, we might as well have been playing in the Champions League still. So you need to field your strongest 11 and go for the win. And then do the same come the weekend, and if anything happens, then it is what it is. But you really need to make sure that you go for the win against Milan midweek.
For sure, I couldn't agree more. Will, have you reversed back to my position, or are you still on Team Coppa Italia?
No, I'm still on Team Coppa Italia, obviously. But there's an extra element here. It's not just about whether or not you win the Coppa Italia. It's also about the fact that you're playing Milan, and whether or not you care about. Maybe you don't care about. Even if you don't. Let me start again. Even if you don't care about not winning the Coppa Italia, you might care about being knocked out of that Coppa Italia by Milan, because of the emotional scar that might create. So this is the extra added layer of difficulty that I think Conte has when he picks his team, because I mean he's not stupid. He will know that if we go out the cup in a derby, which we did at this stage 3 years ago, not wanting to scare anyone, but that's what happened 3 years ago. He's going to know that that's going to be painful, especially after you've dropped points in a game you should have won, and it will really, it will deflate the post Juventus enthusiasm within 10 days of that match. It would be as if it almost never happened. So I definitely don't want him to make 8 or 9 changes. I would understand if he made 3 or 4 or 4 or 5 because of what he said. Personally, I don't want him to rest players against Benevento, because we can't. That this is that you can't. If you rest players against Benevento and then you didn't win, you look like a complete idiot. So you have to play a strong team there. What I would say is, the way I see it is, I'm okay for him to make changes. I'm okay for him to bring in maybe someone in defence, someone in midfield, Darmian, Perisic, I don't know. But I would want him to play the main guys. So I want him to play Lukaku, for instance. If he rests Lukaku, I don't agree with that against Milan. If he rests Barella or Hakimi, I don't think I agree with that. So, it's going to be, I think it'll be a halfway house because there's good arguments on both sides. On the one hand, the league is more important, fair enough. On the other hand, you have to go for it because it's a derby, and you just have to, you don't want the fallout that's going to come from losing a derby. So I think it's difficult, but that's what I expect. And, that's what I probably would encourage anyway. The one name that interests me is Eriksen. I wouldn't mind seeing him start. Do we get round 2 of the regista experiment, or do we? Yeah. I think that might give us an indication of how seriously he's taken. Because if he picks Eriksen again in midfield, that's pretty much saying that the cup is secondary to me, isn't it? As much as we wouldn't want him to, as much as picking Eriksen should be a sign that you're taking something seriously. If he picks Brozovic, then then he's going with his men. But no, I think a few changes is fine. But let's not go over the top. Benevento's 4 days away. It's not like it's Wednesday evening to Saturday lunchtime, is it? It's Tuesday evening to Saturday evening, I think, if I'm right. So.
No, you're right. It's Saturday evening. It's Tuesday evening. You're absolutely right. Mike, what about you? What's your?
I think Will hit it on the head. To me, this isn't an either-or situation because of who you're playing and how the schedule breaks down. Because to add on to what Will is saying, not only is it emotionally deflating for Inter if they lose, these teams play again in the league in 4 fixtures from now. So you risk giving a lot of momentum to Milan, and suddenly you are playing them in the league and they've beaten you twice this season. Not only are you feeling deflated, they're riding high because they're thinking, if we got through this with all the injuries and some of the COVID stuff we've had and the bad form, well, sure, we could beat them again. So to me, this isn't either or. This isn't, it all is interrelated just based on how the schedule breaks down. So I want to see them go for it for sure. And, I want to see what they can do. Look, Milan is sitting there, especially against Atalanta. They were clearly diminished. They clearly didn't have a lot to work with. They lost. And I've seen a lot of Milanistas on Twitter saying that. Let's not forget that when Inter played Milan earlier in the year, that was when the COVID was running right through Inter. I mean, their back line was patchwork. That was Kolarov on the left. That was D'Ambrosio on the right. And that was De Vrij, the worst form he's played since being at Inter in the center. So I want to see what Inter could do at full strength against Milan. For reasons that are much bigger than whether or not you want the Coppa Italia. If you want the Scudetto, I think you need to see them play at full strength. And if Conte doesn't, and if Conte punts this competition, then that's just one more thing where at the end of the year, if they don't win, you put that on the ledger, right? If Conte got his transfers and you don't win, if Conte says, no, nothing else matters but the Scudetto, I'm punting a semifinal of a cup, tournament to win the Scudetto, and he doesn't win, well, okay, then that means you hold them accountable for that. So to me, this will be telling. Like what Antonio Conte prioritizes here, this is going to put a lot more pressure on it. If he goes up,
no, you're right, absolutely right.
Try. Then not only do you need to win the league, but when they play again, when there's another derby in the league several weeks from now, you better hope he has something up his sleeve, and you better hope he gets all 3 points, because probably the only reason that you could justify doing this and punting that game on Tuesday is not just for player health, because players can get hurt all the time, right? It's really, is there a strategic wrinkle that if my squad is at full strength, I don't want to show him on Tuesday because.
I think I know what you mean.
I don't care about the Coppa. Okay, fine, but you better get results. This is the results business at this point out for Conte.
For sure. All right, quick predictions then. I think it's going to go to extra time, and I think it's going to go to penalties, and I think Milan are going to win on penalties. Mo?
I really don't want extra time. Really, like.
I absolutely don't want it either.
Yeah. I think we're going to win. I think balance is going to be restored to the force. I think this is the start of something beautiful.
Oh, I hope you're right.
The Atalanta game. What I mean by this, I think the Atalanta game is the start of something beautiful.
The Atalanta game is the start of something beautiful.
Milan Atalanta.
Oh, Milan Atalanta. Okay, I get you. What about you, Will?
Well, the reason I was laughing is because we had exactly the same prediction for that Udinese game. That, a 2-0 with Lukaku, and we've got exactly the same prediction again because I've got a 1-1 draw, extra time, and because Milan have everything going their way in terms of, well, I mean that's a bit unfair, but they're winning the tight moments. I've got them winning on penalties, especially because if you're going to win a penalty shootout, you need your goalkeeper to dive. So And theirs is very good from penalties. Although he's not playing.
He's been saving his life
He's
just
not
for that
playing,
occasion.
sorry.
Yeah, he's not playing,
Sorry,
isn't he?
John Naruma's not playing. Okay, that's interesting. Right, that gives us a bit more of a chance because he's a huge man for them.
But he's got his little brother Donnarumma playing because remember the last Coppa Italia we played when Gattuso.
No, won't it be Fiorentina legend Tatarusanu? He played against Torino, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. But I mean, last time
he's not that good.
No, he's not. But last time we played Milan in the Coppa was in the quarterfinal, I think.
Yeah,
it was Gattuso with Patrick Coutron.
That was his brother, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was his brother making the match of his career.
Okay. No, I'll stick with what I got. Draw and extra time and pens. Which Mike, I also don't want, obviously. But
no, of course
if it gets us through, then fine.
Mike, predictions?
Uh,
I predicted 2-1 Juve, and I reverse jinxed it, and we won. So let's say 2-1 Milan. So we reverse jinxed it, and we win.
I like how you think there. Right, the Benevento game. I'm just gonna, this is anything other than a blowout win because Filippo Inzaghi's Benevento are a mid to low level table Serie A team is what I'm trying to say, and they hemorrhage goals. They don't know how to defend. This isn't Udinese. They concede. And this is a game where I expect Inter to put 5-6 past them. I don't care even if they play with penalties or extra time or whatever. Inter are this good, this much better than Benevento, and I'm thinking 4-5-1, something like that. There's really not much more to say. Obviously, Lapadula and Caprari, one of them will score, and Inter will score 4-5, I think. What about you, Mo?
Yeah, hold your horses there, Mr. Positive.
Okay.
Look, no, I think it's a win. I agree. And you know how we always say, like the weekend's result depends on the midweek's result. I don't think that really factors in too much here. No. But I'm not predicting a clean sheet. But just not a blowout. Just hopefully business-like 3-1 win. But this is what I predicted for Udinese, and look where it got us. So I don't know.
Yeah, but it's a different side. Udinese are tough defensively. Benevento are not tough defensively, to put it diplomatically. They are balanced completely different. And they don't have Juan Musso in goal, who is phenomenal. So yeah. What about you, Mike?
Unless Udinese loan Juan Musso over to Benevento for a week, I'm not terribly concerned about the defensive structure there. I'm going to go 4-1. I think this feels like a classic. It's funny, right? They said on the broadcast yesterday that no team in the Big Five leagues has scored more goals than Inter besides Bayern Munich, which it doesn't feel that way when you watch them week in, week out. But it's because of matches like this where they're going to put 4 on the total,
exactly.
and then it's going to feel like at the end of the year it's like, oh, look at the goals they scored, but it's not at all an even distribution of when they need them versus when they don't. So I think Inter will roll in this match 4-1, comfortable 3 points.
Agreed. Well, I'm sensing it's a poker of wins.
Yes, I don't think it will necessarily be a thrashing because while Benevento are less defensively solid than Udinese, they are one of the revelations of the season. Admittedly, they haven't done that through defensive solidity, as you said, so we should be able to score 2 or 3. But I don't think it will necessarily be a cakewalk. They play good football. I think they're missing something up front, which means that they are a little bit wasteful when they go forward. But this weekend they were 2-0 up against Torino, and they blew it to draw. And
Simone Zaza scored 2 goals on them.
Yeah, and he scored another one that was ruled out as well. So if you're conceding a virtual hat trick to Simone Zaza, then I don't think that you should be causing into too many trouble. So I think I will say 3-1. I would just like to say though that we're getting to the stage of the season where players are nearing suspensions, and the 3 Bs, as Gazzetta called them earlier in the week, are all a booking from a suspension. Bastoni, Barella, and Brozovic.
And they're all going to miss the derby.
They're all going to miss the derby. That's what I'm getting at.
This is they're all going to miss the derby.
This is the match where he should play Eriksen. He should play Eriksen in the midfield against Benevento.
Now,
he won't, but he should.
Exactly. This is what I mean. And we know what's going to happen. It's going to go to the Fiorentina game, and they're all going to be booked, and they're all going to miss the derby.
Lazio first. If they booked against Fiorentina, they missed the Lazio game. But that's almost as bad.
That's just as bad, because Lazio are looking really good.
Yeah.
So
we'll have absentees in that. We'll have to play Kolarov in the derby again. Bastoni will get booked against Lazio. And then...
Yeah, no. I mean, this is what annoys me, and I think I'm saying, well, then in that case, I think he should play them against Benevento, because hopefully they'll get a booking and miss Fiorentina. Because out of those games, all the games coming up, I'd rather the 3 Bs miss Fiorentina.
That's what I don't know if I said it last week, but when we were previewing the Udinese game, I was thinking, can one of them get a booking, please, and miss Benevento? Obviously, that didn't happen. So they've missed. We've gone all in, and we're gambling on none of them getting booked at this point, and we're just going to go through, and then we'll do it against whoever else.
For sure. Right. Let's move on to the part of the show where we pay tribute, rip the piss out of, and criticize someone or something heavily in the world of football, starting with the positivity, which will be presented by Mr. Positivity, Mr. Mohamed Nassar.
He works a lot, he's intelligent, and he surprises people sometimes with his ideas. Not easy to find one person of this qualities.
Yeah, so like I tried to tease earlier, I think my in a week again where performances, positivity in performances were not quite apparent, we had to resort to another golden audio nugget by Antonione.
Jesus.
His rant against Maresca.
Sempre du, Maresca.
Sempre Alvar. So I penciled in a task for myself to go look back on the previews and see where Maresca was on the VAR to check and understand exactly what happened, what his gripe was with Maresca on the VAR. But maybe I'll report back next week on the pod, and I'll report my findings. But
did you not find him?
No, I haven't.
So
done the exercise yet.
So I watched Luca Marelli's video review of all the refereeing decisions. Maresca was the VAR official for Inter Parma when we didn't get the penalty for the foul on Perisic. So I think that's what he's referring to.
Yeah, no, it is what he's referring to. It's sempre du, Maresca, sempre du.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. Anyway, so this is talk about silver linings. Like in the age of COVID and everything, the lack of audiences, lack of spectators in the stands is really awful. But also, like the saying goes, but also we get these golden nuggets from Conte. So that rant in particular is my Moratti of the week.
I think the golden nugget of the week, even though that was funny, is Duvan Zapata trying to go mean girls on Zlatan Ibrahimovic about what you want the 13th penalty of the season, and Zlatan goes full on mean girls on him and says, "Dude, I've scored more goals in my career than you've played games." So listening to that exchange was pure gold. So you're right. This not having fans thing is pretty funny at times. Let's move on to something much more comical. This week's Frog, which we presented by Mr. William Beckman.
È clamoroso! Autogol di Ranocchia!
Yeah, it's very reassuring, this week's Frog, because often we give Inter a hard time for being the only team in the world that finds creative ways to shoot themselves in the foot and to do things that no other team would be capable of. But we do have a twin in Serie A, as we discovered this week.
Yes, we do.
This week's Frog is quite simply Roma. This was all about Tuesday's match in the Coppa Italia against Spezia. Now I remember it's the 24th as we're recording this. Two weeks ago, or not even 2 weeks ago, about 10 days ago, they were about to play the derby against Lazio, and Roma were they were a few points behind us. They were potentially going to go second with a win. There was even some optimistic chat that they could be, title contenders. And since then, they lost the derby badly. And then on Tuesday against Spezia, a Spezia team that rotated more than they did, I should be clear. Spezia made 10 changes for that match. Roma made 5, I think. They went 2-0 down in about 10 minutes, got it back to 2-2, and took it to extra time. And then, in the first 2 minutes of extra time, they had 2 red cards for completely separate incidents, which I can never remember Inter doing. You can have 2 people sent off in a scuffle or a fight, but to have 2 completely separate incidents producing 2 red cards, the second of which was mind-bogglingly stupid from Pau Lopez as he came flying out of his goal to do a Schumacher from the '82 World Cup on one of Spezia's forwards. That was quite remarkable. I think it was 30 seconds between the two red cards.
30 seconds between them.
For two things that weren't related. Then Daniele Verde made it 3-2, their former youngster who they sent away and got rid of. And then they lost 4-2. Then after the match, it came out that Roma had made 6 substitutions when they weren't allowed to make 6 substitutions. So because they misunderstood the rule about being allowed an extra change in extra time. So the 4-2 defeat against Spezia became a 3-0 defeat at Tavolino. The second walkover they've suffered in this season
because
alone,
of something
because
stupid.
of administrative errors, for fielding essentially ineligible players. So that wasn't exactly the response they were looking at from the derby. Then on Friday it came out that basically Dzeko has fallen out with Fonseca, and now they're going to have to potentially either sack Fonseca or sell Dzeko because they can't get on. And then they almost blew it again against the same opponent on Saturday. They were 3-1 up. Missing chances in the same way that Inter did against Sassuolo when they were 3-1 up, conceded a 90th minute equaliser to Verdi again, the second X goal, and then eventually they saved it in the last minute. But it was a roller coaster ride of a weekend. I needed to sort of publicise this and advertise it because it's just nice, because certain things you only expect from us, and for once we got a week off and we got to watch someone else being stupid. So
no, it really is. Like, that's the kind of stuff Inter usually do. Like, that's literally, that is that I couldn't believe it. And like these past 10 days have been, it's like, what are you doing? What the hell is going on? It's just madness. And then, but it doesn't end there, Will. They signed 2 players, Stefan El-Sharawi and Brian Reynolds from FC Dallas. Only both of them had COVID after signing when the deal has been almost done. So they can't sign. So they can't complete those signings.
They can't do the medicals.
They can't do the medical. I mean, it's just.
I hadn't heard that. Okay.
Yeah, no, both of them. I mean, it's just like they
Am I too greedy to ask for one more gift from Roma, which is when they inevitably fire Fonseca, please hire Spalletti back to save us a little cash, and so Allegri is free this summer to replace Conte?
No. They're gonna, if they do, they'll probably go after Allegri. There's no doubt in my mind about that. Which is, it is what it is. But yeah, no, and Spalletti would be mad to return to Roma after. I mean, he's been.
Well, I've
there
got some
twice.
good news for you, Nima.
He's not going to get a better job than that.
He is mad.
Yeah, well,
he's crazy, and he's not going to get a better job than that. Of course, if he gets offered that job, he should 1,000% go back there.
Yeah, no,
do you remember, what must he be thinking now when he thinks back to the fact that he was offered the Milan job? He was offered Pioli's job 18 months ago.
Yeah.
You know, he could be top with Ibrahimovic at the moment. And
what do we think about blocking it? I mean, what happens if he goes there? I mean, look, he's a better manager than Stefano Pioli on balance, but nothing about this Milan team makes sense. Are they, with a better manager, are they worse than they are now? Like, what do they look like? It's such a fascinating what if.
Can you imagine Spalletti with Ibrahimovic in the same
Jesus.
There'd just be a fight to the death.
Oh, I mean, that
be like the Totti thing revisited.
It would have been entertaining for sure, but it's been quite a week. It's been quite a few. It's been quite 10 days for Roma, where I can't. That's Inter level of chaos. Well done. Like, that's, like you said, it's nice to for once not be in the middle of the eye of that storm and be on the side.
We had a boring 0-0 draw.
Yeah, we had a boring.
We
had a 7-goal thriller on top of what can only be on top of what should only be, you know, the music, the soundtrack. They had 10 days where the soundtrack should be a circus theme music. Like, that's the only thing. Literally, it's just been, they just can't catch a break. They need to bring in an army of shamans, mullahs, priests, to do an exorcism or whatever. I mean, it's just been mental what's been going on there. And then you bring in the whole Zaniolo Jerry Springer thing, where him and his mom and his ex-girlfriend and his current girlfriend, who wasn't a girlfriend, who threatened to sue people if they said he was his girlfriend.
They've even got their own Icardi soap opera.
It really is absolutely insane.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
and the madness is like, look at the temple. You'd think they
don't
would
even have trophies. Like, it must be exhausting to support that team.
Yeah.
What's that?
No,
They're like, are they still fourth? Like they're like
Yeah,
four or five points behind us. You'd think they were in the bottom half.
No,
And, the manager is
Mkhitaryan
getting
carried
sacked,
them for that first half of the season.
right. Madness, absolute madness.
It was built on sand, that first half of the season. It's all collapsed in like 10 days.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say, but this is pretty. I mean, this is again, like you said, it's what we're used to going through. But for once, it's nice to not be in the middle of that, in the middle of the eye of that shitstorm, because it's been what Roma have been like. Their January has beaten ours by like his,
And actually, they had this last year as well. They had a bad January last year as well. So they've got the same issue, haven't they? So
yeah, no, they are now. They have the belt for shitty Januaries now. It's like they've taken it off of Inter. They own the January depression. Like it's just it's their trophy. It's their belt. It's their championship belt. Right, let's move on to something much more negative. This week's Moggi, which will be presented by Mr. Mike Piellucci.
I generally don't like talking about other people in the profession, but we sort of have to talk about Ivan Zazzaroni at this point, because what has been passing for journalism out of his desk is starting to damage the profession, frankly. When you, in the span of 2 weeks, have multiple stories that have been denied outright by clubs in very, very vocal, very angry fashion. And I'm talking about the fact that an Inter sale was already about to be completed, and then Inter being, behind on payments for Achraf Hakimi. It's nothing he's reporting is starting to be based in fact, and it's starting to get very damaging, not just for Inter, but frankly for the professional journalism. This morning it was all about how Beppe Marotta is losing the plot, and how Beppe is in trouble, and for reasons that sort of seem like he doesn't smile as much. There was a recent editorial, maybe I don't know when this one was, but about essentially being outright racist against Asians, for claiming that he basically making fun of how they speak when they speak Italian. There was, the Mihailovic incident, which you guys discussed the podcast a couple weeks ago. It really saddens me to see
the Black Friday front page cover, which he defended and doubled down and said wasn't racist at all, but it was. Yeah, he refused to apologize, saying, making racial puns. No, this guy, it's gone too far. This is the wheels haven't come off here. The wheel, it's past that stage. Someone who owns that paper needs to step in and relieve this man of his duties, because he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. It's really unsettling. He's hurting the newspaper. He's hurting the profession. He's just making a complete clown of himself. And just creating a toxicity that no one needs. And after Beppe Marotta quite clearly goes out and defends Inter, I mean, Beppe Marotta got Real Madrid to publish a strong, statement saying that what Corriere dello Sport, where they named Corriere dello Sport by name, that what they said was a complete fabrication. Then
fabulous.
Yeah, that's fabulous. That's not,
because it's a story. Like the story was in Real Madrid's favor.
Exactly.
They were saying Real Madrid have been
they had no reason
to
do this.
Came out and said,
no, they don't. Yeah, that's exactly how important Beppe Marotta is. That just goes to show you what an incredibly skilled man he is at his job. That you get another club that has nothing to gain to do that favor for you, to come out and speak for you and name the newspaper by name. And then Marotta goes out and says that they've been trying to destabilize us, but they won't, because we have a strong ownership and we're a strong club. And Zazzaroni's reply to that is to go out and make up this childish attack on Marotta, saying, okay, you're just saying that to save your own skin. And it's like, no, dude, that would be you. That would be you who's trying to save your skin for publishing half-truths. And the Hakimi story is not even a half-truth. It's a flat-out lie, where Hakimi's agent denied it, where Inter denied it, where Real Madrid denied it. That's a trifecta of people coming. Everyone involved said, no, you're wrong. That's not what's going on.
Yeah,
so here happens.
Right, and here's the implications. It's bigger than just the effect on Inter. It's bigger than, frankly, just the effect on journalism as somebody who is a journalist, and it's infuriating to see someone who,
profession.
Yeah, right. The impact of it is especially I remember in the early years when I first started following Serie A here in America, and it's the presence of the league is a lot bigger now than it was almost 20 years ago, and certainly there are more outlets. But I remember it's still an international sport. It's still a league far away from home. And I remember just trying to follow the news before I knew how everything worked, and just was trying to figure out what was real and what wasn't real. And it took a long time to realize the good from the bad, and frankly that a lot of the time there is more bad than good. And when something like that happens, it makes it harder for people to really latch on to following a new league and following a new sport, because you're sitting there and you want to just know that the coverage you're putting your time into is real coverage, and that it's helping grow your interest in something and enhance your experience following something. When that doesn't happen, when there are bad actors in the space doing that, that makes it worse for everyone who's trying to grow the sport and trying to make Serie A more of an international game. I would love for more people in the United States like me to get excited about Calcio and to get excited about Serie A, whether it's Inter or any other club. But when you have people spreading blatant disinformation, it just makes it so much harder to latch on to what you're reading and to really build a connection with what's going on, because you don't understand what reality is. There are obviously much bigger, more higher stakes cases in journalism where, blatant falsehood has implications. Again, I live in the United States. I know what that's like. But in a more immediate sense, when we're talking about the game here, this is something that, frankly, the league should have an interest in trying to kind of nudge someone and say, hey, get your house in order. I'm not ever a fan of a league trying to censor a journalist, but this guy is bringing a bad name to the profession.
Yeah, this isn't censorship. This is more someone who's clearly unqualified and clearly out of his depth, having meltdown after meltdown, making everyone look like idiots, including the newspaper he works for. I mean, if it were up to me, if I were the communications director at Inter, I would put out a simple statement going, after repeated transgressions by Corriere dello Sport, all of their journalists, all of their affiliates are henceforth banned until a written public apology is issued, retracting all the lies they've published about us, together with an apology. Boom, done, finished. Because this has been going on for 18 months now. This isn't an isolated incident with this guy. It is a repeated thing over and over and over again. And if you want respect, you got to give respect. This guy is just out of line.
I just remembered wasn't there a letter published from a so-called fan about
which was given a so-called fan which no one had ever heard of, and it kind of like the implications of that allegedly attacking Conte, but it was so transparent, because in the Inter community no one had heard of this guy and online, and it was so blatant that it was basically Zazzaroni emailing himself. I mean, that's what's being alleged, and people have looked into it, and it's embarrassing. This Salvo at Libero, or Salvo24 at Libero.it, or some nonsense like that. It was an email account created 5 minutes before the email was sent, pretty much. I mean, it's just you need to do a little bit of digging and a little bit of due diligence before you publish any old crap. That's not journalism. That's publication. That's just publishing, and it's getting embarrassing. Or it is embarrassing. We've passed that. We're past the point now with which Mike says this is just bad for everybody involved, and you need to. I think a line needs to be drawn here. I think what Roma and Milan did was that Inter should have joined that when they said you're not allowed for the rest of the season to any of our events. Your access is revoked. I think when you cross a line repeatedly like this guy does, and you need to put down your foot. And this is ridiculous. This is you need to put down your foot and say enough is enough. And this is we've passed that stage with this guy for over the last 18 months. Right, that's all we had time for this month. See, I'm getting so angry. I'm getting my time.
Well, it is the last one of January, isn't it?
No, it's not, because we play on Saturday again, don't we? So we'll be doing one next Sunday again.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all we had time for this week. I'd like to thank Mr. Mohamed Nassar.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Always a great pleasure being with you.
Reverend Mike, as always.
Thanks for having me, fellas. Forza Inter.
Sempre. And Mr. Billion Beckman.
Thank you. I'd just like to send a wholehearted congratulations to João Mario for winning the League Cup with Sporting this weekend.
Yes. Hope it goes well. Hope
there are some Interisti who have... No, he's won it. There are some Interisti who have trophies and have silverware. So
I hope he wins everything in Portugal so they buy him. that's where I am on that. I hope he scores 1 million goals and makes 1 million assists. I just want him out of the club and I want Inter to get paid. So yeah, I more power to João Mario. And until next week, my name is Nima Tavale, wishing you a good week, health, a semi-final place in the Coppa Italia, 3 points, and sempre e solo forza.